Hello everyone and welcome to another Muffin video. Before we dive in here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and notification bell and drop a like on the video if you're enjoying the content. Don't forget to join our Discord server as well if you're not already there. And as a reminder, we have activated our channel membership, which comes with all kinds of perks from video shoutouts to personalized help and more, so do check that out if you're interested in joining. And another reminder that all comments on every video moving forward will be automatically entered into our weekly giveaways. Winners will be randomly selected by our bot and announced once a week. So good luck and let's get started. So we have finally arrived at the Thaumaturge, the second class change for the Acolyte class, and Thaumaturge is pretty interesting because this is the first class change we're going to have for the Acolyte that actually sees a change to the original healing build that you run in the base class. So I have said that moving forward in the Acolyte video that it is mostly DPS focused and you're not going to get that many different healing mechanics, but we have in fact a class that changes that. So once again, I want to remind people that I don't personally main a Thaumaturge, so I've put this information together from very trusted community sources, and above all else, I want to give a big thank you to Demi, who's put together a very set of informative guides which are now in a detailed Google Doc linked in the description below. Thank you, Demi, very helpful. So let's take a look at the Thaumaturge together. So there are a few different things you need to know about Thaumaturge. The first is that there are in fact two different DPS builds that depend on your available stat pool and how much haste you have. So we are going to start by taking a look first off at the optimal DPS build. Then we're going to look at the alternative lower stat DPS build, and then finally we're going to look at the changes to the healing spec to see what updates you would be running once you turn into a Thaumaturge healer. So let's start off with looking at the main best in slot ideal DPS loadout, and this assumes you're going to have a minimum of 30% haste in addition to having balanced stats without basically don't sacrifice the rest of your stats to get 30% haste, but if while balancing all your other stats you have 30% haste, this is the loadout you're going to be running for DPS. So let's take a look and understand how this skill loadout works. So starting with the core skill, you have Twin Flame, and let's look at the description here. So Twin Flame summons the Holy Blaze Spirit and the Sinful Blaze Spirits to deal 3 hits of fire damage and last for 10 seconds. Each basic attack will alternatively drive the 2 Blaze Spirits to deal fire damage equal to 100% attack to the target and restore 2% energy. This damage is considered passive skill damage. So we have a couple different things happening here. First off, you have the summoning of these Holy Blaze and Sinful Spirits that deal hits of fire damage. But then every basic attack you deal, when it basically commands the spirits to attack, but this damage is considered passive skill damage. So that's quite interesting, and you will see these two different spirits, the Holy Spirit and the Sinful Spirit, have this sort of dual element aspect, in fact, in the sense that they give different effects depending on what tactical skill or passive skill we're looking at, and that's going to be part of this build. It's this dualism, this duality between Holy and Sinful Blaze, both having slightly different effects. So with that understood, let's now start taking a look at the 3 tactical skills and understanding how they integrate with this core skill mechanic. So the first off is going to be Death and Rebirth, which is actually going to be pretty much the second highest dealing ability in the loadout after your core skill. And how this works is it basically, upon casting, it summons these slowly falling sparks in the target area, and when they land, they deal a very, very large AoE fire damage hit. Plus, after each spark is generated, the fire damage dealt increases each fire damage dealt increases the damage of this Death and Rebirth by 90% up to 12 stacks. And additionally, upon casting, increases the core skill damage by 50% for 15 seconds. So this is a pretty massive tactical skill, as you can see here, with a lot of things happening. So all you really need to know is you're basically dropping this insane AoE nuke that slowly falls from the sky and then blows everything up. It deals a lot of damage. Like I said, this will be your second biggest damage dealing source after your core skill. And you do have this added benefit that once the spark is generated and falling, all the fire damage that you can deal within that time period increases the damage it deals up to 12 stacks, which does add up quite a lot. And you can see all of these promotion benefits are catered around its own damage. So very important tactical skill, quite a lot of damage on its own, especially in AoE situations, and a very nice one to run. So next up, you're going to have Shadow Clone. So Shadow Clone, upon casting, summons a Shadow Clone for 8 seconds. The Shadow Clone replicates the missiles fired by your basic attacks to attack the current enemy. Plus, while the clone exists, increase all skill damage by 23%. So this is actually similar. There was a Shadow Clone type ability in the class change 1 of the Shadow Lash, and this is somewhat similar in the sense that you're basically going to double up on your basic attacks and increase your skill damage. Now, keep in mind this basic attack thing here, because you are going to see as we progress through the skills, there is a lot of focus on basic attacks and how they affect the rest of the skills. So just keep that in the back of your mind, that we're talking about these basic attacks and the effects that they have. So let's continue on to the next ability, Imperial Guards. Upon casting, increase attack frequency by 50% and basic attack, remember what I just said, and basic attack damage by 40% for 7 seconds. Additionally, increase all damage, which is something you rarely see in skills, this all damage, and usually it's skill damage. Increase all damage by 23% for the duration. So this is very, very nice, because attack frequency is going to increase the rate at which you have your basic attacks going out, and you're going to increase your basic attack damage. So like I just said, there is definitely an element of basic attacks being important to this build. And remember why as well. Remember here, look at this. Every basic attack drives the Blaze Spirits to deal damage to the target alternately. You see alternately. So it's going to go, each basic attack is going to go holy, sinful, holy, sinful, holy, sinful, holy, sinful. It's basically going to alternate back and forth and back and forth, assuming that nothing changes that, which we will cover later. But that is how it's supposed to work in theory. So just keep that in mind again. Like I said, as with all previous classes, the more we explain, the more previous things I've said start to click and make sense. So let's continue on now. We've explained the tactical skills and the core skill. It's sort of starting to make sense, but it may be still a little bit like, okay, but why? And as we go through the rest of the passives and the talents, it's all going to click. So let's take a look at the 5 passive skills. Now, the first passive skill is going to be Burning Fuel. So the damage dealt when summoning Blaze Spirit with Twin Flame, the core skill, will splash 55% of that damage to surrounding targets, plus restore energy when your basic attack drives the Blaze Spirit to deal damage and increases the core skill damage. So this is a very important passive skill for many reasons. Obviously, number 1, increases your core skill damage. Your core skill is your primary source of damage output of this build. This is a no-brainer, even with the other stuff not there. You additionally have this added energy gained whenever your basic attacks hit and drive. Remember, like I said, every basic attack drives the Blaze Spirits, Sinful Holy, to attack. You're getting an additional 3.7% energy per basic attack that drives these Blaze Spirits. So that's another nice source of energy. More energy means more core skill uses, means more damage output overall. Plus, like it says, you have this additional benefit of splashing the damage from the core skill, which gives you an added AoE benefit to this build. So very, very important passive skill. Next up, we have Clone Form. So Clone Form, let's read this. After casting Twin Flame, generate an additional Holy Blaze and Sinful Blaze Spirit. Dealing basic attack damage has a 25% chance to additionally drive the Blaze Spirits once, plus increase the damage when summoning Blaze Spirit by 25%. So again, a very, very important and integral part of this build. It is, number 1, increasing your core skill damage, even more core damage, great. But you have this additional benefit here, is you're going to get an extra Holy and Sinful Blaze Spirit in addition to the ones you get from the core skill, which is very, very nice. And as well, you can see here that when you deal your basic attacks that drive the Blaze Spirits, this gives you a 25% chance per cast. I need to understand this. I believe it's per cast to drive the Blaze Spirits additionally once. Or it might be for the duration of the Blaze Spirit, which I believe is 10 seconds. Let's look again. Yeah, 10 seconds. So I think it's probably for the duration of the Blaze Spirit, but if I'm wrong about that, someone can correct me in the comments down below. But either way, regardless of that, all you need to know is it's an important skill. This is just semantics at that point. So Burning Fuel, Clone Form, and then we have the third passive skill here, which is going to be Astral Synergy. So how this works is you get a buff called Astrum for every 10 instances of damage dealt by your basic attacks, which, as you can imagine, in a build where you're very focused on speed of basic attacks, this is going to happen very quickly. 10 basic attacks is going to happen probably in a couple seconds or less. So when casting your core skill with the Astral buff active, it will be consumed to increase the skill's damage by 41%. So this is a very large buff to the core skill damage. As long as you're able to hit these 10 instances of damage by the basic attack before casting the core skill, then you're going to basically have each core skill be buffed by this attack, this damage percentage, which is quite significant for sure. So, like I said, anything that increases basic or core skill damage is going to supercharge this build. So now we have the last two passive skills here, the penultimate being energy conversion. Now this is an interesting one because this is sort of a compromise in exchange for a big damage boost. So you can see here, reduce your passive skill damage by 40% and increase your core skill damage by 41%. So we've already established, if you look back in the core skill here, that this driving of the Blaze Spirits is going to actually be counted as passive skill damage. So what you're essentially doing is you're sacrificing damage from driving the Blazing Spirits in exchange for getting even more core skill damage. And this math works out such that this is in fact more damage. By sacrificing this passive skill damage, you are still getting more damage output despite that sacrifice. So that's why this is an important one to run, and it's better than not having that passive skill reduction in exchange for core damage increase. So finally, we have a skill here, which if you've seen my previous videos about Acolyte, you'll probably recognize. It is in fact Executor. This is the tried and true passive skill for all base class changes and class change 1 and class change 2 for the Acolyte, because it is simply reduce your healing and in exchange increase your skill damage. So because we're not healing in our DPS spec, it doesn't matter. It's just a free skill damage increase, so it's a no-brainer to run. So that is the entire main DPS skill loadout. Now, what I want to show you first before going into talents is going to be the changes you make if you are either a newer player or maybe a free-to-play player that's lagging behind some of the stat goals, stat targets. Then you would run this different loadout, which I will apply here. One moment. Now, what we have changed here is basically we've changed one tactical skill and two passive skills. And let's understand what these changes are and why you would change it. So again, you would run this build only, and I mean only, if your available stat pool without compromising any of your stats puts you at under 30% haste. So if you're under 30% haste with your proper stat loadout, then you would run this build. Otherwise, if you have your proper stat loadout and you have more than 30%, you'll run what we just discussed. But let's go over this now. The first change, we would change the third skill here, the Imperial Guards, to this Radiant Focus. And when you see here, upon casting, increase haste by 35% and gain 120 energy every 1 second for 9 seconds, as well as increase skill damage. So obviously, with lower haste, you're going to have lower skill attack speed, you're going to have lower attack speed, you're going to have lower frequency. It affects so much basically, so that this offsets the lower haste that you have by giving you more haste and giving you more energy to mean more core skill casts, more damage output, and the additional benefit of more skill damage. So I fumbled the explanation of haste there for a second. I'll go over it again when I cover stats. But essentially, this is basically offsetting your lower haste by giving you more haste and more energy regen. But if you already have over 30% haste, then running the previous Imperial Guards we discussed is more beneficial to damage than this skill damage and haste increase here. So, but when you're under 30% haste, you would run this. The two passives that were changed were this one here. So instead of running Astral Synergy, we're running Void Mark. And let's read this. Every 6 hits of core skill damage to the current target applies the Void Mark effect up to 5 stacks, which simply increases your skill damage to the target by a certain percentage. Now again, this is not worth it to run most times, but if you are under 30% haste, then this is a better damage increase from your core skill damage output than the alternative Astral Synergy, which requires more haste to get more basic attacks out in time to increase your core damage. So that's why we're running Void Mark instead. It's just to offset the lack of increased attack speed from having lower haste. And then the other change that we're going to make is changing energy conversion to Shadow's Embrace, which, as you can see here, when dealing core skill damage, there's a 30% chance to gain the Shadow's Embrace effect for 4 seconds. During Shadow's Embrace, simply increase all skill damage by 31%. So again, since we can't rely so much on the additional increased attack speed to get additional basic attacks, we're going to simply increase our core skill damage at a percentage chance, or all our skill damage at a percentage chance whenever dealing core skill damage. So again, this is the build you're going to run when you have less than 30% haste. Otherwise, you're going to simply run this normal DPS loadout, which I will put back on now. So with those two builds explained, now let's transition to talents. And the talents for both of those DPS builds will be the same, and everything else we discuss from now will be the same for both of those two DPS talents. So that's why I wanted to establish that first. Now let's take a look, once the game stops lagging here, at the talents. So here we have the new talent disc. You're going to have Power of Twin Flame, and for your DPS build, you are simply going to run full left side. You're going to run full left side, and we'll look at each talent in a second here. And then on the right hand sides here, these other two talents, you would run Forging Foundation, which increases your attack frequency, which gives you more basic attacks, very, very nice, and Voice of Bloodlust, which increases your crit damage, which is also very, very beneficial. More crit damage, more damage output, and it's very nice for your DPS loadout. Of course, crit damage doesn't affect your healing, but as this is in our DPS spec, it does give us that benefit. So let's take a look at these 5 talents and understand why we're going full left side. So first off, within 30 seconds after entering battle, increase the damage dealt by Sinful Blaze Spirits by 40%. Great. That's one of our 2 Blaze Spirit types, and that increases the damage that they deal. So brilliant. That's nice. Each cast of core skill increases the damage of Sinful Blaze Spirits by 4% up to 5 stacks. Great. So whenever we use a core skill, we increase the damage of our Sinful Blaze Spirit, which is nice. That's one of our 2 Blaze Spirit types, so that's a nice damage increase. Ha! Now it all clicks. And this is your aha moment. This is your, oh, I get it now. Transform all Holy Blaze Spirits into Sinful Blaze Spirits. So, if we go back and look at our core skill, it summons both types, Holy and Sinful. And now, thanks to this talent, every single Blaze Spirit that we have is going to be Sinful, which is going to be a huge damage increase because everything we've just discussed is focused on Sinful, 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 and as well all of the talents and, sorry, not talents, all of our passive skills and tactical skills are all going to be summoning Sinful instead of Holy. So that's how this build works. You're converting all your Holy Blaze Spirits all into Sinful. And now you can see here, for each existing Sinful Blaze Spirit, increase all your damage by 12.5%. Are you starting to see how insane this synergy is? It's wild. So with the additional Blaze Spirits all being converted into Sinful, I mean, I don't even know how much damage output this is. Potentially like over 50%. I mean, this is huge. And then finally, for every 4 hits of damage dealt by the Sinful Blaze Spirits, which is every single time you basic attack, increase the next core skill damage by 3% up to 3 times. So hopefully everything I've just discussed about this build with this talent has all suddenly clicked and you're like, I understand now. We're converting all the Blaze Spirits to Sinful. We're supercharging the Sinful Blaze Spirit damage. It's in turn increasing our core skill damage, etc. So that's how this class works. It's about synergizing your all of your Blaze Spirits to being all this Sinful Blaze Spirit, which then increases your damage output, and you're increasing your core skill damage output significantly. So that is what this build is all about. Now, before I go into talking about stats and mounts and Melomon, I want to now show you the updated healing skill loadout that you will run once you become a Thaumaturge. So let's swap to this now. So let me just double check. Yeah, so the first thing you'll notice is we are now using the up-to-date we're now using the up-to-date core skill Twin Flame. Up until now, in class change 1, we were running the base class core skill in the healing loadout. So now, in the up-to-date Thaumaturge loadout, we are in fact running Twin Flame. Why is that? So we already understand now from me explaining the DPS specs that we have these two Blaze Spirit types, Holy and Sinful. And if you look here at level 90, when driving Holy Blaze Spirit to deal damage, restore HP equal to 10% attack to both yourself and the ally with the lowest HP. Okay, before I continue explaining this new heal build, let me quickly hop into talents and let me show you this full explanation on the healing talent. So in healing, we're going to go full right side. In healing, we're going to go full right side in the Power of Twin talent disc. Let's see why that is. So first off, Salvation. Within 30 seconds after battle, increase the damage dealt by Holy Blaze Spirits. Okay, we're healing, but a little extra damage doesn't help. Each cast of core skill increases the damage of Holy Blaze Spirit by 4% up to 5 stacks. Okay, not bad. But wait. Transform all Sinful Blaze Spirits into Holy Blaze Spirits. And this, once again, should be your "oh, I get it" moment when it comes to the heal spec. Because now every single Blaze Spirit is going to be Holy Blaze Spirit. For each existing Holy Blaze Spirit, increase your healing effect by 5%. Are you starting to understand now? So yeah, before I jump into skills, you will also run Healing Magic, amazing talent disc, and then you have a choice of running Vigor Circle or Turning Point. I would suggest running Turning Point for harder content like Echoes of War and Trials. Otherwise, you can run Vigor Circle to get more additional energy, which means more core skill casts. So now that we've just looked at the talents for the healing build, let's go back and understand this. So now all of a sudden, we are going to convert all of our Blazing Spirits to Holy Blaze Spirits, which means every single time we basic attack to drive all of our Holy Blaze Spirits, we're going to get a 10% attack heal to us and the lowest HP ally every single time we basic attack. This is pretty sick. Like, this is why for once we actually going to get rid of the base class core skill and switch to the up-to-date talent disc and the up-to-date core skill, because this is a really nice source of healing output. So with that established, we have obviously the same 3 Prayer Radiance, Mark of Light, and Invoker that we ran in the base healing build. And again, if you want to go in more detail about that, then check out my Acolyte guide, which is a super detailed healing build breakdown. We're simply looking at the changes. The 2 core skills that, the 2 passive skills that are changed, we are going to run Burning Fuel, which, as you can see here, it is a damage increase to the Blazing Spirits. But there's a bigger reason why we run this with the healing build. And if you look here at the level 60, promotion here, when basic attack drives a Blaze Spirit to deal damage, restore an additional 0.7% energy. So the main reason we're running this Burning Fuel is not actually because of the DPS increase in our healing spec. It's because by running this passive, we're generating more energy, which means more core skill casts, which means more healing output through the Holy Spirit basic attack drive. So that's why we're running Burning Fuel. At first glance, appears to be a damage related one because of this promotion here. Gives you an additional energy increase. And then of course we're also running Clone Form, which gives us, you see here, this is where it suddenly clicks. After casting Twin Flame, generate an additional Holy Spirit and Sinful Spirit, which means that's going to give us 2 Holy Blaze Spirits because it converts the Sinful into a Holy. So this is essentially 2 extra Holy Blaze Spirits, plus dealing basic attack damage has a 25% chance to additionally drive the Blaze Spirit once. This means you have a 25% chance to get another heal. You see what I'm saying? So that's how the up-to-date healing spec is going to work in this Thaumaturge class. It is really, really nice. You have this basically quite a lot of outgoing heals just by simply your basic attacks going out and driving the Holy Spirits to heal over and over and over again. So very, very nice upgrade to our previous class change 0 healing spec that we ran through all of class change 1. So very nice to see an actual talent and different loadout that actually increases our healing and not just DPS. So with all that explained, let's now transition to stats. So if you've seen my previous 2 class guides on the Acolyte and the Oracle, you're pretty much going to be in the same boat of knowing exactly what you should expect. It's going to be more or less these same stats. Crit and determination is balanced to as high as you can get. So here, for example, we have 50.9%, 51.3%. It's close enough. They're nice and balanced. It is a bit high. Like if you're a free-to-play player, you should not really expect yourself to get such high crit and determination, because normally doing so means you'd be sacrificing your other stats, which are just as important. But if you can keep them balanced, that's the most important, whether it's at 40-40 or 45-45 or whatever that number may be. That's what you should be aiming for. The second, of course, your accuracy should be around 100%. You don't need to overinvest in it. It's the same level of importance as it has been in previous class changes. You don't need to go super high on it. You don't need to go super low on it. Just keep it around 100% and you're covered in both your DPS and heal specs. And then after the crit and determination balance and then accuracy, you're obviously going to want to get quite a bit of haste. As we established, if you have over 30% haste, you can run the main skill loadout. If you have less than 30% haste, then you have to run the alternative, which is going to be less DPS output, but more stable for those with low haste. So haste above 30% is a minimum. The more you can get, the better. And then, of course, mastery increases your healing, attack increases your healing. And the one thing we can completely avoid, once again, is any investment into crit damage, as crit damage has no impact on our healing output and simply increases DPS only. You should always, even until now, view this as a dual spec class, and it doesn't make sense for you to hard invest all your stats purely into DPS, because when you swap to your healing spec, you're not going to deal as much healing if you've got like 300% crit damage, which is going to do nothing for you as a healer. So that's how you should approach stats. Next up, when it comes to mounts, obviously during class change 2, you will be eventually unlocking Gen 2 mounts. So you will still run Toby until you get your new Gen 2 mounts at a high enough star level that you can swap without losing too much on the opening skill. So the new best in slot Gen 2 mount for healers is going to be Rainbow. And we'll look at this: increase the character's attack by a percentage and mastery. So this is literally bread and butter for healers. It is going to be really, really nice. And once you have enough stars on your Rainbow to put in your main slot over Toby, which Toby you can see simply increases attack only, and then Rainbow increases both attack and mastery, it'll give you a very nice increase to your healing output and as well your damage. It doesn't make sense, like I said, remember, to invest into separate mounts for your healing and DPS specs because of the fact that you have to also get stickers on these mounts, which can be a bit of a problem if you have to do it on 2 mounts. Even as a whale, it's impossible, and don't even consider it. When it comes to Melomon, it's honestly going to be exactly the same as in previous class changes and Acolyte. It's going to be Snow Leopard for your healing output with Thunder, Smarty, or Snow Raven. The Invisible Friend, Arcane Resonant, and Book of Answers for your special skills. And then for your DPS, you're going to be running Demon Hound with Colt, Demon Hound. Sorry, you're going to run, Your Turn, Echo, Your Turn, and then either Arcane Resonance, Book of Answers, or Sharpness of Claw, maybe. One of those types as your third. So anyway, I know there was a lot of information to cover here. That's because this is a class that has essentially 2 separate DPS specs depending on your stats level, plus an update to the healing spec. But I hope you found this helpful. If you have any more questions, of course, leave it in the comments down below. But otherwise, I hope this gives you a better understanding of the Thaumaturge class and how to approach it. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. Good luck with your Thaumaturge, and I look forward to partying with you and receiving plenty of heals with your up-to-date healing build. And take care, everyone. See you in the next one. Bye now.